Cheating in gaming isn't uncommon, as every competitive scene has to issue punishments for dishonest players on a yearly basis. This is especially true for League of Legends, with professional leagues all over the world giving out suspensions for rule infractions every season. The majority of these bans are for negative behavior and toxicity, with very few actions by players compromising the integrity of professional play. But all of that would change in February 2021 when one player's confession would stop an entire league pending an investigation. What was found revealed the most widespread match-fixing ring in the history of esports, involving 17 different teams and 38 individuals who were throwing games for profit. Today we'll be looking at how this came to light, who was involved, and the severity of the punishments handed out in what is the worst cheating scandal in all of esports. But before we begin, be sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell, as it makes sure you don't get cheated out of seeing the next video. On February 22nd of 2021, Bo, the jungler for FunPlus Phoenix in China's professional league, the LPL, would report himself to the team's management, stating that he was coerced into match fixing while he was in the developmental league, the LDL. This resulted in Bo receiving an indefinite ban while an investigation was opened by the disciplinary committee, but their findings would soon reveal that the extent of the match fixing wasn't related to just Bo, but was spread across 12 teams and 2 entire leagues. Their initial investigation found so many cases of match fixing that they began conducting one-on-one interviews with all players, coaches, and management. So much wrongdoing was found that the LDL was halted on March 15th in the middle of an ongoing season due to the extent of corruption that compromised its competitive integrity. It wouldn't be until April 22nd that the results of the investigation were posted, and the conclusion was the worst in competitive esports history. A total of 38 individuals were given bans, with one entire organization being disqualified from the LDL completely. Since the majority of the scandal took place in the developmental league, let's have a look at some of the more prolific bans to get an understanding of what may have happened. Shang-Chi Gaming would see their entire roster disqualified and 4 of their key players banned, with their top laner Spunk being one of the 12 people to catch a lifetime ban from competitive play. The lifetime bans are interesting, as 6 of them were handed out to players, with the remaining half dozen being given to managers and coaches of at least 5 teams in the LDL. As for the rest of the punishments, they ranged from just 4 months in the shortest of cases, all the way up to 2 full years, with bans including pro play and being able to stream the game. The Pro League is an interesting case, as due to the depth of corruption in the LDL, the investigating body offered all players a policy of leniency if they came forward before getting caught. 2 players would come forward under this offer, Bo, who initiated the entire investigation, and Teen. Teen's admission to match fixing was contained to the 2020 season in the LDL, with no evidence of any wrongdoing taking place in the LPL being uncovered. In the end, he was found guilty of fixing the outcome of 1 match, which is also what Bo would be charged with. Due to both players' cooperation, they would have their 6-month bans reduced to 4 months at the conclusion of the investigation. But what about the 3rd player in the Pro League? Bless was the other player in the pros to be found guilty of match fixing, with a total of 3 games being compromised by his actions, 2 in the LPL and 1 in the LDL. For this, he received a 1-year ban from competitive play, but the cheating in the LDL unfortunately wasn't contained just to this inquiry. Ahead of the current investigation, 2 players had received lengthy bans for manipulating match outcomes back in 2020, Mai and Weian. Mai would be banned on January 3rd, 2021 for 38 months for fixing matches in the LDL during the 2020 seasons, but this wasn't enough to trigger a full investigation. Weian's case is a lot more interesting, as his team, Rogue Warriors, notified the disciplinary committee that he had been involved with match fixing during his tenure with the team on the 21st of March, 2020. 6 days later, the committee would render their verdict, with more details being released about what had taken place. In a now-deleted Weibo post, Weian would claim that he had accrued a gambling debt playing poker with friends, and borrowed money from an unnamed individual to pay the debt off. Later, this person would ask him to fix matches for them in the LDL, but Weian maintains that he never ended up fixing any matches. The details get murky from here, as lots of the sources are anonymous and require translation, but there are alleged screenshots of a text message conversation between Wyon and another person pertaining to matches being fixed against two different teams. The punishment he received isn't up for speculation, as they awarded him with a 24-month ban for streaming and competitive play, effectively ending his tenure with Rogue Warriors' LPL team. It didn't end there, however. It turns out that Rogue Warriors didn't report Wyon to the committee. They only alerted the committee after it had been reported, and since ensuring that contracted players follow the rules is part of a team's responsibilities, the committee fined Rogue Warriors $423,000 for their failure to do so. When the full league investigation was resolved in April, Mai and Wyon were both banned for life, with no further details being given by the league about any more matches they may have fixed or been party to. Match fixing comes in many different forms and is commonly known as intentionally throwing a game or taking a dive, as it's said in combat sports. In League, it can mean a lot of different things, such as allowing a tower to be taken, giving up a single kill, or just using an ability with a long cooldown wantonly. The committee was very public with the people involved with match fixing and the length of the bans handed down, but they didn't reveal many details of which matches were fixed, the amount of money being bet, and what methods were used to influence the games. The rules of the various competitive leagues around the world all have provisions against any player engaging in gambling related to match results or conspiring to affect the outcome of a match in a non-competitive way. Punishments for infractions aren't outlined, but since the rules are similar across every league, we can get a rough estimate of what certain actions will warrant. So let's look at 3 case studies. In the now defunct LMS League, which hosted teams from Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau, Team Dragongate would be permanently removed from the league after multiple members were found engaging in match fixing and betting on professional games. The team's owner was banned from being affiliated with any team in a Riot-sanctioned tournament. Their jungler received an 18-month ban, with their coach and manager each receiving a 12-month suspension. So what did they do? Their top laner 2188 would release a lengthy Facebook post explaining everything that happened. The actions taken are quite sinister, but here's the rundown. The management decided to bench the main ADC, Sol, for their upcoming match with Alpha Esports on the 27th of March 2019, citing a family event that prohibited him from playing. Despite this, he continued to practice and play with the team as if nothing had happened, which raised the suspicions of 2188. He asked Sol what was up, to which he confessed that the managers had asked him to participate in match fixing for $750 a match, to which he declined, so they put the substitute ADC in the starting position over him. He asked how losing to Alpha Esports would benefit the team, and in response, Sol would show him screenshots that revealed the owner engaging in underground gambling on the match results of his team. The odds for the bets to pay off were extremely low, but the betting service allowed the use of multiple accounts, and since the outcomes were being fixed, he was able to earn hundreds of thousands of dollars through the shady practices. Wanting more proof, 2188 asked Sol if he could invite the team owner out for dinner with them, while he secretly recorded audio throughout the meal, which led to more bombshells being dropped. It turns out that Sol wasn't the only player on the team that had been approached for match fixing. Their jungler, JGY, was also involved and had been profiting off of many matches throughout the season. On March 28th, you can see the coach's alleged involvement in action. Going into Game 2 against AHQ, Sol would question Yoga, the coach for Dragongate, on why he had JGY pick Xin Zhao when the champion had never been practiced by the team during scrims. The question enraged Yoga, with him declaring in front of the team and the referee that he would get rid of Sol once they got back to China. And if that wasn't bad enough, when 2188 asked Yoga to apologize, he said that his men in China would deal with him and get rid of his hand tendons. The case just keeps getting worse, but there's a Reddit post I'll link below that goes into much more detail than I can cover. So let's have a look at the punishments to see what we can learn. For organizing the match fixing and engaging in betting, the owner was banned from being affiliated with anything that Riot sanctioned in any capacity. 2 of the coaches received 12-month bans for engaging in match fixing and gambling, and we know that Yoga specifically was instructing the players to pick champions they hadn't practiced with. as not only did 2188 bring this up in his post, but you can see them arguing about the pick during the matches on broadcast. We don't know the full extent that the coaches were involved, as there hasn't been details released about them engaging in betting, but in the official post, they were cited for gambling on match outcomes, so we lack details for a conclusive evaluation. Which leaves us with JGY, who received an 18-month suspension from competitive play. We know he was getting paid to throw matches, but it's hard to make a determination on if he was punished for gambling as well, as the rule states you can't be indirectly involved with it. It's likely he was given the extra time on his ban for making money off of the match fixing, despite not being involved in the act of gambling himself, but since the details weren't fully released, it's hard to draw an accurate conclusion. On August 24, 2020, Riot made a post detailing that 4 members of the Greek Legends League were being banned indefinitely for violating the rules against match fixing and illegal gambling. The parties involved were an owner that didn't have an active team in the league, a coach, and 2 players. Like most ban announcements, they don't go into the details of what specific actions were taken or which games were fixed, so we have no way of knowing if the 4 people involved were colluding together or if they acted independently. There is suspicion that the top laner from Greek Regenesis, Tenas, intentionally threw this game in spring 2020 as he picked Gangplank, had 60 CS at 25 minutes, and used his ultimate twice in the entire match. While this isn't conclusive evidence, we do know from the post that Riot found at least 4 matches that were influenced negatively for financial gain through betting and direct payments in exchange for soft play. With all 4 individuals receiving the same punishment and no further update being given, it's likely that they were all involved in match-fixing games together at a large scale throughout the 2 splits, but that's only speculation on my part. If you think otherwise, let me know down below. The last case is unique in that it's only a singular instance, but there are lots of details and the bans are short, so there's a lot of material we can draw on for a baseline. In the CIS League, which is played in Russian-speaking countries, 4 players from the Vega Squadron team would be banned for colluding and betting related to a game in the 2020 LCL Spring Open Cup. Like the previous instances, not many details were released through official channels, but the ADC involved, Optimus, posted a lengthy explanation of what he perceived to have happened, along with screenshots to back up his claims. On the final day of play for the Spring Open group stage, Vega Squadron had a spot in the playoffs almost locked up, as they would move into tiebreakers even if they lost both of their matches for the day. Their first match of the day was against an amateur team, Funny Yellow Dog, and this is where things get interesting. It was noticed that FYD had 15-1 betting odds of winning against Vega, which 3 members of the team would point out in a group chat. According to Optimus, this started a conversation on intentionally throwing the game against FYD for money, since the team was confident they could get a win on their second match of the day or in tiebreakers. During the match, Vega was up by 6k gold at the 25-minute mark, but never pushed to close the match, with Optimus pointing out several things he thought were fishy during the contest. The most suspicious moment being a team fight that broke out near Vega's inhibitor that had them up 4 champions to 1. Instead of focusing on FYD's Jhin and then finishing the game, Vega's Yasuo decides to go farm creeps in the middle of a team fight, which allowed Jhin to clean up the rest of Vega and end the game. That in and of itself doesn't prove that match fixing was taking place, but given that Optimus had screenshots openly discussing odds with the premise of throwing the match, it's not a stretch to think that the game was being soft played by some of the members. Riot also agreed with that assessment and banned Vega's coach, top laner, support, and Optimus himself for 2 months each. Oddly, the mid laner was left out of the bans despite his in-game play, with only the players discussing the potential match fix seeing any time. The team and its members deny that any bets were placed on the match, which may be true, but Riot took the situation serious enough that they banned them 2 months each for discussing the intent to match fix and place bets, which is covered loosely in the rules under section 14.2.2. With the 3 case studies, we're a bit more equipped to evaluate the severity of the 38 bans handed out in the LDL, so let's start at the top. Of the 12 lifetime bans, it's likely that they were colluding and betting together in a number of games greater than 4. as it was a combination of players and coaches who received these bans. Next, let's look at the bans in the 14 to 24 month range, of which there are 5. Given that JGY from Dragon's Gate was given an 18-month ban for getting paid to match fix, it's likely that these players and coaches were getting paid to fix matches for multiple games. It's not likely that they were betting on matches, as the only case we have where players were match fixing and betting is the Greek Legends League, and for the combined offenses of betting and match fixing, they were all suspended indefinitely. It's hard to say which offense carries a stiffer punishment, as JGY was banned for 18 months for match fixing only, with his 2 coaches receiving 12-month bans for illegal betting per the official posts. According to 2188, the coaches were also involved in helping to fix the matches, so any conclusions about suspensions we could draw from their punishments is hard to do. So I'll leave you to your own thoughts as to what the 14 to 20 month ban recipients did to receive them, and be sure to let me know down below. In the case of everyone under 14 months, we do have a better idea of what transpired. Given that we know a single instance of conspiring to bet can give a penalty of 2 months, an actual instance of it likely falls under a 3 to 4 month ban. If this assumption is true, it puts 9 players under the umbrella of a single game where they were involved in match fixing, and another 5 who received bans of 6 months, having likely been involved in 2 instances of soft play. You can keep applying this rule up to the 12-month bans, but since no details were released, it's hard to say for sure. If I was a betting man, I'd say that once you get up to 6 months, it's likely that both betting and match fixing were involved, but we won't know for sure unless the full report is ever published. This was the largest instance of systemic match fixing in the history of League of Legends and esports at large, but it wasn't the only time this has occurred. We looked at 3 other case studies, but even that doesn't scratch the surface, and if there's an instance you'd like me to cover, please let me know in the comments down below. That's all for now. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and to join the Discord, and I'll see you in the next video.